A Lawless Time is approaching, and there is a lot to break down. It's a new set, new mechanics, some new aspect pairings, and some new decks that we're here to talk about tonight. I'm Jordan from the Colorado Cantina crew, joined by my teammates Kyle and Sharkey, and tonight we're not going to do our normal thing. Fear not, if you're here for the meta breakdown, we're not leaving you hanging. We're going to be talking about the end of the episode, getting you ready for regionals. The three of us, even though Kyle's going to regionals, he's really focused on limited. And for us, we're really trying to get a little bit of a head start on Lawless Time, and we're seeing these new reveals, and we're having such a good time going through it every day that we wanted to build some new decks, do some brews, and talk about some really interesting cards that we are pumped about. So tonight, we're going to start by going through the set from a 10,000 foot view, trying to see the forest through the trees, if you will. After that, we'll talk about some of our favorite interesting cards. No legendaries, none of the super powerful. We're not gonna be saying, oh, Luke's pretty cool. We're talking about other ones that are standing out to us. And then after that, to close things out, we're gonna go over this past weeks of PQs and some of the meta stuff to get you ready for your events moving forward. Okay, all that done. Sharky, how you doing?
I am doing fantastic, and I am still in the stage of I love every bad idea that I've come up with so far, so I'm still pretty excited about the new set. How about you guys?
Kyle?
Yeah, revitalized, right? You could start to see the new set coming, right? I got my pre-order put in. I know how much product I'm getting, and we've reached that card threshold where you can legitimately start to brew some decks and at least the bones of them of where you know they're going, right? So it's a good time.
Yeah, and I think there are some interesting decision points based on the period in which we're in, right? Like you have, I think it's maybe like 110 cards revealed so far. I haven't been counting exactly. Maybe one of you guys could message our teammate Paul and try to get his little spreadsheet that he does during the pod. We'll pull it up. Yeah, I say little spreadsheet, but it's actually really cool. It like outlines alphabetically where the cards are, so then you could kind of prognosticate on what possibly could be there, what color they are, and stuff like that. But it's in the spot where, sure, there's still a lot of the set left to be revealed. There has been a lot shown. And then on top of that, Alex Krez, one of our buddies from Blue Milk Gaming, we were chatting the other day, and he was like, yeah, there's only 100 or so cards revealed. But if you look at it, it's like 850 cards. You know, looking at the three sets that are available plus this new one that's coming out, right? So maybe it's not 850, maybe it's close. Sharky's better at math than probably me and Alex. But as we were looking at it, there's a lot of possibilities, a lot of cool builds that are coming. Tonight, we're going to be talking about three new leaders, three things that we're excited about, but there's a lot more to come in the coming weeks when we get closer to pre-release and stuff like that. So I guess let's just kick things off. Kyle, you mentioned your pre-orders. Let's start with, has your ordering behavior changed and stuff? And I would also like really love to know from our viewers if that if you've changed your ordering behaviors. Are you getting less carbonite, more carbonite, no carbonite, singles only? One thing on my end that I'll kind of say is that I love opening product, but usually we're buying a ton of product at the beginning of a set because we're going to a tournament in the first couple weeks and we're a little worried about being able to get them through TCG Player on time. So far, there hasn't been an event. I'm not really doing that. So Kyle, what's up? What have you been doing?
Yeah, I think there's probably two things that have really driven my strategy this time for what product I'm buying. One of the things we talked about when they made the pack changes was, I'm a showcase guy. I have like 45, 50 showcases, something like that. I like the showcases, right? And one of the reasons I bought lots of carbonite was because I had a much higher hit rate on showcases. Mm-hmm. They lowered that. I care less about serialized cards and prestige cards. I want showcases. So it made it less interesting to me. So I wanted less carbonite for that reason. But the second thing that, guided what I was buying was the legendaries. There's just way more good legendaries. I'm going to need a lot more copies of a lot more playable legendaries this set. And you just get more presumably in regular boxes. So, like last set, I bought 5. I ended up buying 6 boxes of carbonite. This set, I'm getting 2 carbonite and then a case of regular, right? So a lot more just regular boxes than carbonite for me this time.
Sharky?
I'm actually not convinced that Kyle's chances of drawing a showcase have actually changed at all. Like 0 doesn't really get a whole lot better when it's fair, worse. Yeah. But my buying patterns haven't changed going into this set because they changed going into the last set for me. I bought a lot less carbonite into secrets than I did previously. Some of that is being more financially responsible because it was a problem in Legends of the Forest, but some of it's also the way it's spread out a little bit. And this time around, we're not scrambling for a tournament, which is a little bit of an unfamiliar feeling, so I don't actually know how much to get. But there's such a wide pool of things going on here that I haven't even had a chance to really wrap my head all the way around it. So I will probably end up buying the same amount that I normally do, and it'll probably be skewed towards regular boxes just so I can get enough bulk to play the million deck ideas I have. But this set is probably shaping up to be a lot like Secrets for me.
Yeah, I think I'm going to end up buying the same amount of Carbonite with just probably a little bit more regular. But again, I think this is the type of set where people are going to experiment with what they like and don't like based on these changes, and then we'll reflect on them afterwards. But overall, I think the set looks really awesome. I think that the mechanics are really fun. I think double aspect and the way they're doing it is really interesting. I think the credit tokens are awesome. I
love credits.
I can't wait to cling clang all over the place from our friends at Premier Games, obviously sponsoring this fine podcast. But I also think that just in general, like the legendaries are really powerful so far. You have some interesting build arounds. We'll dive into this in a future video once all the legendaries get revealed. But like from Max Rebo to Luke Skywalker, like there's raw power, there's good stuff. I just think there's a lot of quote unquote.
There's even jank that's good enough to build around.
Yeah, you know, and that's an exciting thing to see.
Yeah, I think you're saying, to me, this is looking like Spark level of power, which is great considering this is the start of a new rotation. We need that first set to really, get us going. I should also mention, if it sounds like I buy a lot of product, I should remind people that Jillian, my wife, also plays. So I'm buying for two people.
Yeah. He's justifying his bad ideas.
Yeah. We already judged you. I don't even need to justify because I'm an independent man. I can do what I want.
I'd buy for my dog.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. But yeah, I think there's just a lot of good stuff, right? And I think there are some archetypes that are going to be shifting and changing. Like there's some interesting removal that's been printed. There's some interesting ramp that's been printed. We'll talk about some of that interesting ramp a little bit later tonight. But overall, man, my vibes are pretty high for what's in the future. What's current, all that stuff. But in the future, I'm feeling good about, which is an interesting place to be.
Yeah, totally hyped. Like really excited just to play the new set, right? Like I've felt hyped like this recently. I don't think,
For me,
it's just crazy. It's just the game feels like it's shifting to a place that it hasn't been to yet, and I expect that to be positive. But because we don't know, we get an exploration time, and I have a feeling this one will last a bit longer than the previous ones when we're adding, sets 5 and 6 to a pool instead of just cutting out 3, adding 1.
That's the thing for me. Yeah. The exploration. Right? The chance to learn new stuff, to have to memorize new cards and realize that there's new 7 drops that are coming in that aren't Han, Luke, or otherwise, right? Like, I think it's invigorating, right? It's exciting to be in a spot where you don't know everything and you can't expect everything. And I think that's really awesome. We have this thing internally where we have like our deck levels where that's how we do our testing. We're trying to like sort and format things. And today I went through and deleted like 30 of them. Right. That's like it's crazy. Like there's like 7 left, 8 left that aren't like fully destroyed. And that's an interesting time to be, and an interesting time to be in the Cantina Crew Discord as we're talking about all these new builds. This afternoon, we had like 15 people or 10 people in voice for a little bit going over builds. Link will be in the description. Come and join the party. Okay. Kyle, what's like the one thing mechanically that stood out to you about the set so far?
Yeah, you touched on it a little bit there, but it's got to be credits. It's proving already to be very interesting in kind of providing, we've always talked about conditional ramp. It's kind of conditional ramp. You'll be able to spend credits on other things, a la Boba Fett, these sort of things, right? But what I really like about it is it's a way to kind of cheat to or get your way to something bigger, but at the same time, not allowing you to bring out your leader sooner, right? It's not letting you ramp to, Palpatine and steal something early. Your leader's still coming out when they come out. Granted, there are still some classic ramp cards, but the way that credits function and the way you're going to have to interact with your opponent to prevent them from doing credity things, I think will be fun.
Speaking of credity things, Sharkey, I saw you nodding your head. So let's go over to our first deck of the night. That's Jabba Green from Sharkey. You have to stay tuned for what the other 2 decks are, but it's no surprise. Got some Underworld coming in from Sharkey.
I figured I might as well stay in my lane a little bit for this first one, right? It's the new Underworld Tribal. At least until they reveal a Cad Bane leader for me. This one is very early work in progress, so do not judge what I see here. But there's some cool things in both Underworld and Green Yellow in general that I really like. We talked about the band, and I think that's hilarious that you can actually have that in a Jabba deck that makes sense because it's Jabba's, whatever. Anyway, you can play Max on 4 so that you bring Jabba out next turn, and if you're up against a 4 or 5 flip leader, it's like you're flipping almost at the same time, which enables some janky plays.
Yeah.
The other part of it is the favorite play that I have in mind is everybody knows Kyle loves getting Bazine, but what if he got Garinden over and over again?
Oh, yeah.
So I had to make sure I had a deck that I could do that with as well for testing. But it's also a strong play in general into things that are like control based too. So if you start ripping apart their hand, traditional control does not tend to like that. And playing Garinden multiple times over and over again while generating ramp to make bigger things is usually a way to win the game. And so I threw in some of the bigger things like Director Krennic unit. Actually, we talked about it a bit last set about how Kyle was sad about not being able to ever use him, but I think he's going to be a relevant meta player in the upcoming set or post rotation because A, it's a really strong unit, and B, credit ramp is a thing. Like that's really
serious business, bro.
It's huge. And outside of like the bounce ship that I forget the name of, like there's not a lot of easy deal with him kind of ways, especially if you get him early enough. So this one is a lot around generate credits, disrupt your opponent for a little while, get big stuff out there. One of the drawbacks that I've seen specifically for Jabba so far is that the top end's a little interesting. I would say it's probably, if you're going to generate a ton of credits, it's not where I really would expect a top end for a deck like that to go. And so maybe I have to think about it in a different way, but I haven't had the chance to do that yet. So there's a bit of testing to do on this one, but the idea is there and the shell is kind of there. We still have half the set to go.
Yeah. So for a little bit of a tease, we talked about some of those big green yellow units as we talk about another deck tonight. But one thing to think about here is like the concept that I've been considering is like, are credits a replacement for ramp or a supplement to ramp? Right. As opposed to like, obviously what you could do with credits is really cool. But one like kind of sub thing that I've been thinking about is like, should they be played together? Do they need to be played together? Or is there benefit to considering alternate perspectives? Kyle, have you thought about that at all?
Yeah, I did a little bit. And I think there are going to be some decks that try to do both, right? Like some of these, I'm not going to name the leader, but some of these leaders that really want to go to really big stuff, maybe like Annihilator, I think you're doing both in combination.
Yeah.
I think your tempo decks are probably just going to do credits and just try to get very incremental edges, right? I just want to go up one. I just want to get that one thing above your thing, right? And I think that's going to be pretty effective.
I agree generally, and so for this deck, it was leaning into the credit generation. However, the idea behind having 2 max Rebo here is to, against some of the shorter flip leaders, make it so that Jabba flips at the same time.
Sure.
It's not so much to ramp into bigger stuff, but you want Jabba out there because his leader side is actually really, really good if you can ambush an Underworld unit.
Yeah. Speaking of Underworld units in general, Sharkey, how do you pronounce the skiff that Jabba has? The
katana?
2/4, the katana.
I think it's katana.
That's a card that really stood out to me as I was getting through, like, just thoughts about what to brew around. What obviously it's just a one-off for you right now. Have you thought about it being more than that, or you think it's too gimmicky? Or tell the people what it does too.
So in this case, it is whenever it's on attack. Is that right? It's when played and on attack. It gives you a discount to the next Underworld unit you play. And while I like that, I don't want to build around it given how much other credit generation is already built into the deck. It's like, I kind of thought of it like Kyle used to describe discard effects, where sometimes you can lean a little too far into that and suddenly you're doing absolutely nothing with everything you have.
Sure.
You're still just going to discard their hand and lose the game. This is kind of in a similar vein. I don't know whether katana would be the thing to lean into or the other credit generation, but I'm starting with a lower number of katana as more of like a backup plan if you don't get the other generation going.
That makes sense.
It seems like a decent unit. It seems like it should be strong. I think it's probably just better in limited than, it's not a starter card, is it? It seems like it would be a better limited card than a constructed card off the rip, but I'm not 100 on that either.
For sure.
Yeah, in some ways, I still think we're trying to figure out what we want to do with this deck. Like early Crumb can be very aggressive to push damage and super obnoxious. I agree. As soon as you Garinden me like 2 or 3 times, I'm going to table flip. I can't handle it.
Great.
I don't think I can handle this. But yeah, I agree with you though. The top end, right? Like you have a lot of ways to potentially push towards the top end between max and credits and that sort of thing. And I just don't think we have the payoffs yet necessarily. And we have more cards coming. I want to see that big yellow villainy thing. Like we had the old CAD units.
I was going to say
right?
Cad Bane is missing heavily here.
What's that big yellow villainy thing that we're paying off towards? Because I think that's what we need here.
I like the Rancor, but yeah, so go ahead.
I think we're giving the Grand Admiral a little bit too much of a short change here. I mean, I think that Thrawn is pretty, I mean, it's not the huge top end. We're not talking about 10, 11 resources, but I think Thrawn is going to see a ton of play in this rotation block.
I agree. I like Thrawn a lot. And there's a reason he's in the sideboard here is that he's not an underworld unit.
Yeah.
And so I can't ambush him using Jabba's ability on his leader side. So he's there for specific instances. And I think he fits in better in other decks. Krennic Yellow comes to mind. For this specific one, though, I was really hoping for another Cad Bane type underworld wreck the board and ambush something at the same time kind of like play that you could make. That might be too powerful in the new balance of things, though, so I might be getting a little bit greedy with that. I'm not sure. I just need to see more of it. But yeah, I agree. Thrawn is fantastic. His only drawback for this particular deck is that he's not underworld.
Yeah, I feel that. And then one thing that I've been thinking about too with a lot of the decks that I've been making is the concept or the conversation of Beguile versus the Bouncy Blade is what I've been calling it internally in my head. It's not actually called that, but it's the blade that bounces.
It should be called that.
Beguile obviously caps at 6. My general thought is that these credit generation decks are going to be cheating things out early if it's caught on at all. And then maybe Beguile isn't really useful in those situations in the same way that you thought they might be.
Yeah, bounce is a good punish though, right? I do all this credit generation. I try to cheat something out and I go, cool, put that back in your hand.
Yeah.
And now your credits are spent and you don't have your big thing and that hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a very real chance that in this deck in particular that the Bouncy Blade comes in for Beguile. The reason I ran Beguile here is to cooperate with Garindan to piss Kyle off even more.
Sure.
So
the last thing that really stands out to me about this deck is that we have like this underworld synergy going on, but Max Rebo just happens to be that, right? We've talked about it before, and like you said that it's mostly to get Job out because Job's leader ability is really good. Obviously, Max Rebo is going to be a very highly discussed card in the preseason, into the meta, into a year to come when no one's played him at all. What's the deal here? Like, is this going to be a meta defying thing at any point in its existence, or is it just like an interesting thought experiment? I honestly don't know how to feel about it yet.
Yeah, I think he's one of those cards. People are going to try to break the game with him initially, but since it's only with a set that has been play tested, I don't think it's going to happen. I think he does fit into that. Hey, I have a 6-drop leader. Would it be cool if I just kind of skipped 5 so I flip at the same time as 5-drop leaders?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it could be interesting there. I think what happens to him is he kind of disappears, gets forgotten about for several sets, and then out of nowhere, some unforeseen interaction happens, and he breaks the game, and then we have to do something about it. Right? It's just he has that feel to him.
Some like random Akbar style deck.
Yeah,
you know, where it just comes up and does whatever.
I agree. I think he's going to be overplayed in the early game or the early part of the set. I think he's going to settle out to being, he's not an auto slam on 4 for this deck, for example. And I don't know that there will be many where it is outside of the meme decks that are trying to do it, but someone's going to forget about him and get punished by him midway in the set one time and be like, oh yeah.
I'm happy the card exists. I'm happy that there's some room for experimentation, and you know, I think this is a very powerful legendary, whether it's overly played or not. So be really interested to see how that goes. Okay, so the deck that I want to talk about tonight is also green yellow. So we're going to go to Kyle talking about Jin Red, a little bit of a Rebels brew here. We were doing some testing in the Discord this afternoon. Have some off aspect stuff coming in from the side and in the main deck, some different options. Kyle, I know this has been one you've been excited to build. Jin, really awesome character. Rebels, drawing cards, hitting base, seems good.
Yeah. So you guys know, especially if you've been watching the show, I'm typically the guy who says, I'm going to take all the existing leaders and try to power them up. And, you know, behind the scenes, that's exactly what I did. I have several builds with existing leaders. But for this show, we wanted a new leader. I love Jin, and I really hope this showcase is fire because it's going to be the one I want, right? So anyway, so I said I want to start with a character I really like. My initial read of Jin was, maybe. But now that I've built this deck and gotten to fool around a little bit, had some teammates in the Discord fool around a little bit, I'm like, wait a minute, maybe we got something here, right? So we've already been proving this a little bit. The best way I would describe this deck maybe is it should just be called Aggressive Negotiations, the deck, right? So, there's a lot of games where it's like, I will swing with aggressive, whatever, with Aggressive Negotiations, hit you for 14, game over, right? This deck draws a lot of cards. Right. And so we've got multiple ways that are doing it between some of our early drops, card draw throughout the deck, and of course, Jin's ability. So we're really leaning into getting a huge fat hand, being pretty aggressive at the beginning, and then just kind of ending you out of nowhere is going to happen. Makai had one of the things that seems obvious now. I don't know why I didn't consider it initially, but Ray, right? We're drawing a lot of cards. We're going to be able to show you Ray a decent amount and get those pings, which could be very effective. And then, one of the reason I went with the base that allows you to play one out of aspect card is Kanan is super good. And, if you're already trying to do an aggressive strategy, he's a very good tempo play to just kind of set your opponent back and allow you to push damage, because you're just trying to get to that bar where I can now kill you with Aggressive Negotiations. Not only that, but if you go Kanan into Zeb, it's brutal. I mean, that combo one after another just crushes, right? And allows you to push that damage, clear the way towards that end game. So I've had a ton of fun, kind of brewing this deck to initially. We should mention that we haven't seen all the set. There might be more to come. But I think the bones of it is pretty good.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of interesting units from the ground up that we either have not seen like a ton of play in past sets or are brand new on the scene. Case in point, Kanan, Zeb, we have Cassian Pilot making an appearance.
I love that.
Undercover Lando, right? Fulcrum, if possible, in the side. I think one thing that I've been very interested in is that, like, there's been a lot of cards printed that are like, this is an aggro card, this is a control card, this is a defensive thing, this is in this color scheme, this is in that color scheme. And primarily the aggressive decks have been some mix of green and red, or yellow and red, or maybe even yellow and green in different forms and fashions. But I think we're seeing this start to come out where, like, there's enough cards that are designed in different areas to be aggressive and defensive. And here we have a really aggressive card draw engine that allows you to push tons of damage. You're playing, reasonably statted units that have decent abilities all the way up the curve, right? From Bodhi Rick to Chopper and obviously Karis. Like, it's just a solid deck overall, I think.
Yeah, this is actually, I will admit this on air, that this is the first time I've had a chance to look at this deck because I've been real busy the last couple days. And honestly, this is the first heroism deck I'm planning to play. This looks awesome.
Yeah. So
there's so many fun things to do with it.
So what stands out to you the most?
So all of the red-blue aggressive hero decks that have never existed before seem to show up in this one deck for me now. And I've always wanted to run, like, Cassian Pilot has always been on the fringe of a deck that's possibly viable to work. Galen Urso is now, this is a deck where I want to run Galen anyway. And that's been a card I've wanted to focus on since we got rolling. Adding Kanan Jarrus into that with the new common base is a really cool play, especially since he's also a rebel in this case, and that triggers, or that can help trigger Jin's ability. I love the synergy of it. I love the idea of also drawing 1 million cards and just hammerheading somebody for 15 or whatever it is. This is awesome.
I mean, Hammerhead's a pain in the butt to deal with, especially in a meta with less and less removal, right, Kyle?
Yeah, well, how many times even in the limited testing we've done so far, Hammerhead just kills your leader, right? Especially if they're a later deploy leader. I have so many cards in my hand. You're like, I'll flip. I'm like, cool, Hammerhead, goodbye, leader, right? Yeah. Like it's been pretty effective so far. And then to your point, Jordan, the Hammerhead's hard to deal with. So there was a lot of games where it's like they flip their leader, I play the Hammerhead, kill their leader. Then the next turn, I play Aggressive Negotiations off of the Hammerhead with 10 cards in my hand, and it's just game over, right? It's crazy.
So there's a couple cards that stand out to me as maybe like fringe ads, and that's Karis's Manifesto, and then the Valiant Commando. Are they kind of on the outskirts for you as well, maybe?
Yeah. The Nemec's Manifesto was something that Makai on our team was trying, so I wanted to give it a try as well. I'm not totally sold on it, but there are some weird times with this deck where you're kind of floating a resource, or you're kind of in between because maybe you're holding out for Jin's ability, it doesn't happen, and then you want to be able to, weave something in. So I might want to try it just a little bit more. One of the other places I don't like is my 2-drop ship there, the Y-Wing. We lost a lot of good 2-drop ships. I'm hoping there's something else coming we just haven't seen yet, right? I want space, right? Because I think it's a good vector to go after people right now, and I want to be able to do maybe some pilot things. But that ship is not my favorite, so I'm hoping for something a little better there. But for the most part, there's a lot of things I like about the deck. I think any blue deck now, Galen is almost must include. Being able to name credit.
I love
pretty
Galen.
good,
at least in the 60, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So,
but yeah,
I think you might have to reframe your perspective a little bit. And I think you might have to say, thank you, sir. May I have another red Squatch and Y-Wing? Because I have a feeling it might be not the cream of the crop, but kind of getting up there. By that same notion, I think the 1/4 defense wing is going to be a lot better than people think it is. I understand it's boring stats. One of our teammates was calling it conquered down at home, meaning a downgraded Conquered Dawn. But these space decks, if you're trying to run a ground force or any sort of build there that focuses on the ground, these space decks are going to come, and they're going to come hard.
Yeah, I mean, at least in early testing, it's definitely harder to. A lot of the tools that we had to interact across arena or to deal with these things directly rotated, right? So we're gonna have to find answers, and there are some new ones, right? There's the tree card, whatever that thing's called.
The tree remembers,
yeah, the tree remembers, that sort of thing. But yeah, well, we got to learn the names of all these new cards, right? So the tools have changed, that's for sure.
Yeah. So I'll make an argument for the Y-Wing though, in this deck, you have a couple ping mechanics, right? With, let's call it war. You have knowledge and defense, which is, going to be minusing things. Obviously, red 5 is the big one. Ray, and then Sabine's masterpiece when you're pinging with red units. So, I mean, I could see an argument for that. Some of that indirect not being don't get me. I'm not saying this is Quinlan Tarkentown synergies and stuff like that, but I think it could be a lot worse. I think is my grand point.
Yeah, especially if they don't know what I'm doing yet, which early in any set is going to be the case, right? So you're right. They kind of misplaced their indirect damage, and then all of a sudden I pop a ray off the top with Jin's ability and finish something off. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I think I was trying to compare it to the Green Squadron A-Wing, which has been a staple for 2 years now. So it's hard to move on from such a that would be fantastic in this deck too. So it's hard to move on from that without thinking about it.
And when you say that, how much better did the N1 Starfighter get? In yellow, right? That and the Phoenix Squadron A-Wing are the only 2 3-power 2-drops in space right now, I think, right? No, the Fireball would be another one.
We used to have the Restored Arc too. So this color pairing specifically for early space plays is diluted at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, you still have the Jedi Starfighter, which is not terrible, right? Again, it could be a lot worse. So we'll see how that kind of builds up. Anything else on this deck you guys want to hit on before we move on to the last one?
I'm excited to try it.
No, I don't think so, but I do have one for you. You mentioned to reach out to Paul. So we are at 125 cards previewed out of 264. So, there's stuff going to be going into these decks we don't know exist yet.
Yeah, absolutely. This is our way too early first look, right? Because that's what we're doing. Every set we say, we're going to start later, and we just don't. So that's what the deal is. All right, moving on to the last deck. This is what I want to talk about. It's Krennic Yellow.
Yes.
I started playing this on Saturday. I built an unreal amount of decks over the weekend. I don't know if any of you guys noticed in the Discord, but I think on Saturday I put out 8 of them. I was just sitting there in the zone. So this deck is crazy. I mean, there's no other way that I could really describe it, but what you're doing here is you're playing really cheap units that potentially generate tokens. For instance, the patrollers here that makes an X-Wing. We have the other 1-drop first order TIE fighter here, Victor leader or Victor 2 to attach and make spies. Then you have the ISB shuttle to make TIE fighters, and then the ISB shuttle to get spy tokens, all in the effort of making credits, ramping, getting Krennic out early, getting Krennic Eunuch out, and just all of a sudden really flipping the board from there. One really interesting thing about Krennic's ability is that you don't need to pay for it on the leader side. You can just defeat a unit at any time. So one of my favorite play lines so far has been play the patrollers, sack the TIE fighter, then next turn play the what's the ramp card called, Sharkey? I'm blanking here.
The expendable mercenary.
Yeah, the expendable mercenary, using the credit, and then you kill the expendable mercenary with Krennic's ability to then refresh your credit going into the 4 resource turn. And then all up and down the curve, you have things that either ambush and or legacy run that kills things. You have Vix who makes credits. You have Sentinels. You have another token engine in Dedra. And then if you're able to get the Krennic unit out prior to flipping your leader, on flip, it does its power to another unit, which can really hold leaders hostage. There's no leaders up and down the curve at that point, especially if you're ramping ahead, that are able to deal with taking 8 damage. It kills Padme. It deals with a lot of different struggling situations, whether it's a suited up unit or a leader being held back by that flip.
Like I said earlier, I think Krennic unit is actually going to see a bit of play coming up, at least in the early parts, but I expect him to stick around because you're right. That's a very strong ability. And that's not even that's just in combination with the leader. I think Krennic unit getting him out even remotely early and having him be attacked into anything can just refill your hand as you're trying to ramp to it anyway. I'm really excited to see this one as well. The interesting thing to me right now is that you're not going in on the Rebo band, or you don't really want to have any music playing for this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many different ways that you could approach this, right? You could approach it with the Rebo stuff. You could approach it with Nabat, which one of our teammates, Makai, has been working on that a little bit to kind of craft that opening hand. Because admittedly, if you're able to get that, 2 unit start with the ramp on the next turn into this, into that, it feels pretty good, right? Like, I mean, imagine you go from the mercenary into resupply carrier, and then, by I think it's resource natural 5, you're flipping Krennic and playing a giant Krennic unit out there. I haven't tried the Rebo band yet. I probably will as I mess around with it a little bit more. The deck is kind of gimmicky, right? And I wonder if that leads or will lead to it being a little bit easier to disrupt, but
yeah,
it is really powerful.
I actually did have one question on a card choice as well. Why do you have, I think I know the answer, but it's worth asking. Why Executor over Intimidator?
Yeah, I don't know.
The Intimidator is the one where you pull the resources back.
My thought was that I want tokens.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And I was thinking to myself, hey, if I could just get a little bit wider, continue, because by that point maybe Krennic's dead, and he's back on the leader side, and I'm able to get it going. But it's funny because I had the same internal conversation as we were talking about top end in your Jabba build, where I was like, okay, what do these units do? Do I have prestiges of them? Do they go, do they go in the deck?
The important questions.
I think the mid-level top is really from First Light to Krennic unit. I really like. I feel like that's really, really strong. As you get a little bit higher, they don't have an immediate impact outside of making tokens. It's not like you're dropping Avenger or Big Devastator from the first rotation. This deck would just crush with Big Devastator.
I was say it's tough to replace Devastator.
That'd be amazing. But yeah, I think this deck, similar to the Jabba, is searching for maybe a little bit of a top end replacement here. But other than that, it's been pretty good, I think. I mean, the Cruel Commandos is a decent Sentinel. You're going to take some damage in the early game for sure. You could maybe get a little lucky with some Lothcat starts as your credit engine to kind of, get some well-timed exhausts out there, and then maybe into a legacy run helps you control the board a little bit. Dedra could be very helpful there as well, but you're gonna take some damage before you're able to do all this cool stuff, most likely.
Yeah, the card I really love in this deck is the Legacy Run, right? Just being able to self-sacrifice, and it's faster than it was with Palpatine, right? Because his ability cost 1. This one you could do it on the same turn played. So that's going to be a way to help you. I look at this deck and I think, is this just Piet though? Right? From I'm trying to ramp to big things. Do I just get got by super aggro decks, right? And also, do I just immediately win when things curve out exactly right? Because it always felt that way with Piet, right? Am I going to get run over by aggro? And if I get the right curve, nothing can stop me. So similar-ish, I think, just from an outside view.
No, I think that's probably fair. I think the biggest difference that I would say is that the Krennic flip is really impactful. Mm-hmm. And obviously not to say that the Piet flip isn't. Being able to, cheat things out for two resources cheaper is always good and always welcomed. But it's like having strike true out there, right? Just on flip. Like some ridiculous turns are like if you're able to get Krennic unit out early before you flip, and then the next turn you go flip first light plot. Like there's a lot of really cool things you can do from that perspective. It might be a little linear. It's hard to say because I'm only probably like 50 or so games into it. It is funny though, you mentioned like you leaving out Ray from your Jin build. I did the same thing with Legacy Run. I completely slipped my mind. I was like, oh, you're really dumb. What I try to do is I take a quick glance through our private Discord deck threads to see, oh, is there anything here? But I always try to not look prior to building because I kind of want to just like get my creative thoughts out there and then I'll cut it down as I get outside inspiration and stuff like that. So I didn't see Makai's Nabat build, as Kyle mentioned. Like you commented in the thread saying, "Oh, this is there over, there going on." I didn't see it until after I was getting ready to post. So I typed in Krennic, popped up. But I'm saying to myself, like, the Legacy Run's really good, but I was more focused on the pings and trying to exhaust stuff. I think I had the snub fighter in over Legacy Run, which in retrospect seems ridiculous.
Yeah, I think the deck's cool. I guess the other thing I wonder if it shuts down is if it Galen is going to be a real problem, which thematically I think is awesome, right?
Yeah.
So you've got Krennic doing his thing, and then thematically, can Galen come and just ruin his day, right? I just call credit token, and I go, "That's cool. You've been spending all this time generating all these tokens. They don't do anything, right?" So I just think that's fun.
No, that is cool. But the question is, have I done my damage before Galen can even be played?
Yeah.
Right. Do I get so ahead early on that I'm able to maybe I don't do the mercenary ramp line. Maybe it's more of like a Bix line that gets me a good unit out there, or Qui-Gon that's in the side. I think, there's some different things you could do there. And obviously you have Turbo Laser Salvo as well, which is, really nice to be able to go cross arena. One thing that I've been curious about from your guys' perspective is this, the Nabat versus 30 conversation. Obviously, there are some cards you really do need to be able to make this sort of synergy, quote unquote, like sing. But is the extra 3 HP that you're getting worth it? Kyle, you mentioned that you'd be afraid of this getting got by aggro decks. Aggro decks like 27 HP, don't they?
Yeah, that would be exactly my thought. I would try to play the deck without Nabat first as much as possible. And if you just find I just have too many starts that don't work, I need to smooth that out, then try Nabat.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be the worry, right? If we have an aggressive meta, that 3, especially if you're trying to do this ramp to big things strategy and now you're starting down HP, I think you're leaving yourself open to just getting killed before you can do cool things.
Mm-hmm. My first thought regarding that, though, is that if there's ever a time when Nabat would probably shine is with the smaller card pool, when you have need of specific cards and have a lot less redundancy built into the deck because there's just 2 less sets in the pool. So I could see an argument either way. I have no intuition for it whatsoever, but Kyle makes some good points that if aggro is going to be your problem, then 3 less health is a big deal. But does the deck function well enough? Is it redundant enough to work without it? I actually don't know the answer to that, but those are questions that you have to answer through testing, right? Yeah.
Another question I would have from the 27 HP perspective is, are there any cards that aren't green yellow that stand out to you that you say, oh man, this would fit perfectly here? Because admittedly, there are some weaknesses in the middle of the curve in terms of how you're defending aggro. I mean, Dedra's solid, Legacy Run is solid, Cruel Commando is solid. Outside of that, obviously Eighth Brother too, maybe Eighth Brother and Dedra, you could argue, are a little bit, redundant in terms of what you're filling those slots with. I'm playing Beguile here over the Pouncy Blade because I'm worried about the early game less than I'm worried about the late game. Kind of different to the other perspective we were talking about with the Jabba build there. Are there any off aspect cards top of your head that you'd slam?
Well, I think, and I thought what you were about to get at, but I think this is a good question. Is anytime you build any deck now in this new meta, and you have a 30-point base, you ask yourself, is it worth running one of the new common bases to fit in one card that'll make the deck sing? And on the Jin deck, my answer was yes. I thought that Kanan was just so good when he run Kanan into Zeb, that it just made sense in that deck. But yeah, even a deck like this, you look at it and you see the 30 and you go, is there just one card here? And I don't have one. I wish I had a good one to give you off the top of my head, but is there one card here that'd be like, wow, it would just be so dominant in this deck that I'm going to run that base just to play that one card. And I think it's always going to be worth considering in any 30 HP deck.
Sharkey?
I'm having trouble coming up with a single card for this one. But like Kyle pointed out, there's that conversation now has to happen, I think, with every deck you create. Is it worth running off aspect one time? Does it make the deck? And right now my answer is I can't think of one for this one, because a lot of the cards that I would think to even try here are green and yellow anyway. So I think that leads to the answer for this deck may just be that you run 30. But it is a thought you have to have.
There's one card for me. Unfortunately, the base isn't going to work for it, and that's the Mandalorian 8-drop. I think that would absolutely crush here.
Yeah, he's heroism though, right?
Yeah.
So he's not going to get you out. One card that I was thinking of as we were talking, before rotation, if we had this new base, like one of those cards would have been Overwhelming Barrage.
Yeah.
If I was playing any villain deck that was not green, I probably would run that base just so I could OB people, right? Because it can just win you games. So it's like we got to find out what those cards are that are worth just bringing in.
Is No Glory Only Results worth it?
That's one single target removal. I mean, if you really had a problem of something you needed to, I think it'd have to be something that has a real game swingy effect where maybe it can, deal with multiple things, that sort of thing. Like maybe if you're running like a control deck that, you want to run the new Super Laser Blast, but you're missing one of the two aspects, but you're running like a heavy control, maybe it's like red, yellow, and you really want to be able to do that, that sort of thing.
That was where my brain went too, but it's two of them. So
what about Hyperspace Disaster?
Ooh.
That
actually space is really a problem, maybe. Yeah.
The issue I have with Hyperspace Disaster, I think specifically, is that I think it's semi-redundant with the Legacy run, which is already there, and you can that's Legacy run is almost Hyperspace Disaster at home, but for 2 less resources and to get to your credit. So there's an argument. I don't know how much space aggro we're going to see. So it's possible that is an important enough card to add depending on the meta, but I think that's super meta dependent, and it's a pretty small window of a meta that really comes in for.
So my last one here, as a maybe, if I was going to do it, what about Cad Bane?
The blue
one? Cad Bane.
Yeah.
I don't think he's impactful enough.
Okay.
Because he kills one, smaller or damaged unit. Yeah. Again, I think I'm looking for something that has like board impact, right? Something that's game swingy, not just kill one thing.
And I don't think that exists right now. Like I went through it trying to think about it. All the blue stuff besides Hyperspace Disaster is like one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Like Condemn was something I considered, but then I realized I need to have blue cards in my hand. So I was like, no, Condemn's a really bad idea. As I went on a little bit further, I was like, okay, maybe No Glory, right? Maybe one of these bigger ships, right? Maybe as opposed to trying to look for the green and yellow top end, maybe I borrow.
If Avenger was still here, I'd say that.
What about Devastator, right? Like,
that's fair.
What about the
Fulminatrix?
Yeah, you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
That's a good idea. The payoff. We kind of said we don't know what the payoff is. Like you're running the Executor now, and I don't think you're super hyped about it. No. But just being able to get in a different payoff that you might be able to get to, especially as the game goes on, this deck's going to continue to ramp and generate credits. You could just be paying those things. Like you use it once, and if you want to play another one, fine. You'll have the resources for it later.
That's not a bad idea, actually. I do like the Devastator and Fulminatrix ideas there. I was thinking blue as well, and I think red may just be the better way to look at it.
Yeah, maybe. If you guys have any suggestions for any of these decks, let us know in the comments below. You can make an argument that, like, Anakin here is pretty good, but is it that much better than Dedra or Eighth Brother or Resupply Carrier? Probably not, right? Darth Vader is not ambushing, so a little too slow probably. You know, it's not like we want Pershing or that type of thing to get our game going. We have enough small units to create tokens. I also considered maybe something if there's like amazing token generation elsewhere, but there's some good stuff here to get into. So those are our first 3 builds that we'll talk about. We got a bunch more coming throughout the next couple weeks as we get into Lawless Time, pre-release season, all of our rankings, the leaders, the legendaries, the deck builds. Oh my God. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. If you're interested in talking about a little bit more, let's dive in a little bit deeper to some of our favorite cards. You saw some in the builds that we went through tonight. Kyle, let's kick things off with you, because I think the card that stood out to me that you're a really big fan of is really interesting, but I haven't figured out if I really love it yet. And that is the Shadow of Stygian Prime. Is that how we're pronouncing? What are we saying here?
I thought it was Stygian, but I don't remember.
Fair.
All right, I pulled this card out specifically because this one is really polarizing for me. I can't wait to play this on other people, and I'm going to really hate it when people play this against me. You know what I mean? Like, I think this one gives me like a visceral reaction. Somebody plays, I'm like, you took out my unit, and then you're kind of slapping me after that with just 2 damage every turn. It's like a nagging reminder that you took out my unit, right? It's so obnoxious, right? Like, I've run into this a little bit with like some new Vader yellow builds and that sort of thing where they're doing more of a control-y thing. So, yeah, I think it's a good card. I mean, we've already seen No Good to Be Dead be good. You know, we've seen Frozen in Carbonite get played a little bit, but as we've lost some of our removal with rotation, this gives you kind of pseudo removal in a color pairing that you don't always see it, and it's just effective and obnoxious. So I called this one out just because I had like a guttural reaction to it of like, God, like this one, and then the bouncing of Grindin with Jabba, or like the two things already are like getting under my skin.
I did make a Jabba red for this, actually.
So I guess like one of the upsides here is that 4 HP, 4 cost is a little bit of a risk.
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I was trying to think of like how much upgrade removal is going to be played, like we lost some of the good upgrade removal, so that it might be more effective.
Should I should I rephrase my question about Krennic and say, are we running Outer Rim Constable?
Yeah.
Honestly, that's not a terrible idea.
The other thing that I'll say here is, man, this hyperfoil is going to go hard.
Oh, that's gonna be cool.
It's gonna be sick. It's gonna glow from the. I could just pick. There's like certain cards that you see every set that you're like, yeah, that's gonna absolutely slay in hyperfoil. One for me last set was the Tempest run, right, with the red green.
Oh yeah.
This is another one that just slaps for me.
Well, imagine you do your Krennic thing and ramp all the way up to Executor, and then your opponent just plays this on it. And you're just
I'd be really upset.
You feel sad.
I'd be real upset.
Bummer, dude.
Yeah. So something that makes me a little bit happier though is this Zeb Aurelius. Finally, Zeb getting some respect. I love playing him in the early Sabine deck as like a little bit of a sideboard player, but another great example of how these double aspect cards have just like really been being nailed. Sentinel 4/4, a little understated, but has a great ability, potentially 5 to a ground unit. Just, you love to see it.
I mean, he's a brand new card, but every time I've seen him, you're like, oh, he's a good card with a good ability. And then you always kind of forget, they're like, oh my God, and he's Sentinel is so good. Like especially when your opponent's trying to swing back, if I'm playing that race game in the Jin deck specifically. So he's been super good.
Yeah.
I like him in a Hera deck as well. Like obvious things are obvious, but like it's cool to see a good Hera this time around.
So if I had to say, man, I think that these blue-red double aspect cards are my favorite so far. I think Luke might be my favorite overall, but the spread of them, Churret, Baze, Zeb, Cho'Gath, or whatever, is so good.
Yeah. Yep. And to your point, hyperspace, I think like this guy with all the flaring going out around his body is just another one that we're gonna get some really cool looking cards.
So he's gonna be prestige, right?
Presumably, yeah, he'll be part of the Spectre crew or whatever, right?
Yeah. So really pumped about this. We talked about it obviously in the Jin deck, but love seeing Zeb get some love. Zeb getting some love. This is one of my favorite cards of the set. With the worst art of the set so far for me. I've seen the Squidward meme. I've seen
Squidward on
a toilet. I'll also say that which Mackelson is the guy? How do you pronounce this guy's name?
Mads.
Mads. He's a good looking dude. You know, like they did him real dirty here, especially compared to the Galen.
I kind of love it.
Yeah, I picked this as one of the cards I wanted to talk about because I just love it from a design perspective. I think both of the Galens have been really well thematically and mechanically designed. I like how the interaction works for both of them as him kind of being this undercover agent. And this one is exactly that, right? I'm going to put him on your side of the board, and I'm going to gain benefit from him being on your side of the board, right? Which I just think is really cool. How effective it's going to be. I think in both Galen's cases, I don't think you'll see either one of them main boarded a lot, maybe the blue one more now, but definitely in sideboards all over the place because they both have very specific use cases that are very good. Like just imagine this guy Invader Pilot, right? Like I'm going all space. I've got a swarm going up there and I just slap him on your side of the board. And if you can't do anything about it, suddenly I'm, just smashing you with all my little
Especially
units.
Invader Pilot, he's got no one to run into because there's nobody on the ground.
5 HP. That's hard to kill in one.
That's nasty.
One swing. I think this is going to be one of those cards that as you're building aggro decks or decks that fold to Churret, Typho, Obi-Wan, etc., you're going to have to ask yourself, should I play this? Should it be in the 60? Your answer is probably going to be yes, right? It's just a good answer. It's there. And I'm excited to see it get some play. Shout out the artist who did this. One for me is Bix Colleen. I really like this card. I think it's well statted at that 4/5, that old Kanan stat line. So it could be a little bit better, but it also has this like double pronged ability where it's on plate and on attack. I've been loving this in the Padme deck where you get a little bit of a reward for discarding. We'll talk about some other cards that got spoiled too, but I had a couple games where I discarded it's a rock or that's a rock with this to ping 2 and get a credit. That just seems awesome.
That seems really good.
Yeah. I like Bix as a character too. A lot of cards I always draw to just because I like the character. Although this is probably from a pretty rough moment for Bix in the show.
Yeah,
that's true though. I like this card too. It's got a lot of utility even outside of Padme decks. I think this one is one I haven't had a chance to really think about as much, but is a high on my list of may go into every yellow deck for the next 3 or 4 decks that I build. So
especially decks that don't need Underworld, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Just there's so much to do with this one. Like play it and chuck a card that you found a way to draw anyway to create a ramp out of it. There's all I really like the credits in general, and any card that is trying to emphasize that I'm drawn to trying out early.
And guess what? You don't want to discard a card? Don't do it. Right? You can do it next turn, right? Another one, just real quick, obviously, is Kanan. We talked about it a lot in the Jin deck. This might be the Kiadi Mundi of this set, where it's just like the amazing uncommon that maybe not everyone's going to play because it's this double aspect, but just so strong. Like this could be a legendary and it would be absolutely no sweat, right? Like this is, they've really done a great job with the legendaries. That's not me being negative, but this card is really, really strong.
Well, especially if you bring him in that aspect. I mean, again, going back to the Jin deck, the whole reason I'm playing that base is for this card. It is so powerful on 4 resources. When I, smack your base, you smack my base, whatever, you play your unit, your 4-drop, and because I have a red out, an aggressive unit out, I say, I'm going to expand my board with Kanan Jarrus, and I'm going to undo the play you just made. Let's go to the next turn. Is brutal.
Absolutely.
And he's a rebel for that one. He just keeps... The synergy is great. I like this card.
Yeah. Another one that doesn't really need much description or interaction for us to really get into. It's Spacecrafty. Black Sun Patroller, 2/2 shielded in space. My heart, be still.
I love that everything that's 2/2 shielded is now X Crafty, whatever it is, whether it's Force Crafty or Space Crafty. And Crafty has been a workhorse for decks of mine for 2 years now. So I love this card too. It's not flashy, but it's good.
It's meat and potatoes, right? All of these yellow villain decks, you're going to see this all over the place. And it being shielded is a good setup for a pilot situation. I'm sure Vader loves this card. It'll be all over the place, right?
Yeah, meat and potatoes is a good way to describe it. Something that's not meat and potatoes is, from a certain point of view, I think one of my favorite art cards of the set so far, right? Like, especially because the design is so stark to like the
the gray background.
Yeah, the gray background and stuff like that. I bet this is another card that slaps and hyperfoil and stuff like that, but definitely a little bit less of a wide application here, but I can see the potential from the perspective that you're about to break down.
Yeah, there's entirely one deck I want to try this in, and it's Barasafi. I don't think that this is really worth it, and it's probably not worth it in Bears, but it's not worth it in any other deck in my opinion. But this one, if you can get a free ignore aspect penalties and get something way off aspect like Luke Skywalker or Bo-Katan or something like that for not extra aspect penalties, seems like the play to make here. If you can also generate enough, I'm doing a lot of caveating here, but like if you can also generate enough credits to ramp ahead, being able to drop something huge way off aspect early and not have to pay the aspect penalties seems like it should be good until someone plays that stupid Blade Wing, right? But this is one I at least want to try to see if I can get it to work, and it seems like a leader that I've been trying to build anyway for a while might be the most beneficial one to start with.
Oh man, I'm going to call this card a Sharkey special and emphasize that we each picked 3 cards that we thought would be fun to talk about, not that were necessarily good.
Yeah,
but we'll see how this one goes. Right? I agree with Jordan though. I think the art, especially in hyperspace, would be awesome.
Yeah. I'm excited the card exists. Like for a while, that's not damning with faint praise here. Like I'm being serious. For a while, the neutral cards all were like unimaginative, boring, bland, etc. And I think this isn't that. Whether it's going to be good or not, we'll find out. But it's not boring.
I'm not even convinced it's going to be good in the use case I want to try it for. But at least it has somewhere to start playing with. You know.
And now we get the wonderful, the lovely. This is a really flattering angle of Lady Proxima. Obviously the Underworld special here, a little bit similar to her old unit, right? Just sitting on the board doing more or less nothing, but giving you a little bit of benefit. Is this a credit deck special, or how you viewing it?
I feel like this is actually one that if you're not specializing in credits, then you start playing this. And I say that because it's kind of supplemental. If this is your only focus, they're just going to kill it. And if it's the only thing your deck does, you want this to be like the second highest priority on the field, which means you're probably not only trying to create credits, but it's a supplemental way to enhance your strategy. And because of that, as I mentioned earlier, I'm really interested in a lot of the credit generation strategies in general, and she is high on my list of I would like to try this out and see what I can do with it. I don't expect this to work in a strictly credit focused deck so much as this is a supplement to maybe go a little bit bigger with some of the curve than I usually like to, or try to get ahead of the curve a little bit for one play or 2 plays maybe, because I don't expect Proxima to stick around on the field very long no matter what.
Mm-hmm. So 2 cards coming up that we'll close out with here really have no debate. I think we all just think that they're super awesome and really cool, and that is BT1 and 000. Where are these from? I don't know them.
They're from the Dr. Afra comics.
Oh, okay. Got it.
And they're Afra's sidekicks, basically, and I absolutely love them.
I totally missed it. I thought 000 was just C-3PO when he got reprogrammed to speak in
No. He's asshole C-3PO.
He's got flame. He's got a torture suite here. I didn't notice.
Yeah. He's a real jerk, and it's awesome. Nice. I love these guys. I'm glad they finally made it into the game. Yeah, like... honestly, these guys probably should have come out with Dr. Afra. I'm a little shocked they didn't do that, but since that didn't happen and now we're here,
Afra, right?
Well, it's true. We got a new Afra unit, but I meant the original one. Mm-hmm. I not only do I love the characters, but the effects these guys have can actually stack up pretty quickly and be really. I mean, obviously they synergize well too, but it's almost in some ways an aggro card that can help somewhat keep control of the board as well if you include BT, because like one of the things aggro has issues with is knowing when to hit base versus knowing when to hit the extra units. BT kind of just helps with that and does damage to their units anyway. And then as they are helping create favorable trades like that, 000 comes in and just does damage to the base, which I mean, a 4/4 for 3 is already a pretty good stat line. It's not unheard of, but it is a very strong. You look at Knight of Ren, look at General Grievous. Both of those are cards that are see or are going to see play at the very least, but they have seen at least some play previously. And I mean, he can get real dangerous real fast.
Yeah, just well-statted units with a bonus, with an upside, right? I mean, you just playing them on curve together. They're very well-statted and can do a little extra for you. I'm sure we'll see both of these a good amount.
Yeah, and just coincidentally, not theme-related at all, they synergize really well with Sebulba, who we'll talk about on a future episode, I'm sure, with his self-discard from deck. And you say four for 3 is not an unheard of stat line. Usually they have generic abilities or negative abilities, like the Contracted Hunter dies at the end of the turn after it ambushes. This is really solid. So
and speaking of cool hyperspaces, I bet these both
they're gonna the Blasto mech. Are you kidding me? This is gonna be awesome. And what a great little so I don't know if they call them that in the comics, but I love that subtitle. So went a little bit long talking about our favorite decks, as well as getting into some cards and stuff like that. We're going to end things off relatively quickly, going through the meta just to get you guys up to speed, getting ready for your PQs. Regionals is coming up too, Kyle. You got to brush up on your constructed, because I know you've been focused on the limited stuff, but you know how it is as you get out to Milwaukee. One thing I want to hit before we dive into some of the data just real quick is that we had the Paris limited sectors over the weekend, and it was really cool to see a Sabe Blue make it to the finals. Not sure if you guys caught any of that coverage, but we talk about, Leia, Yularen, Sly to a lesser extent, Sly's favorite, or Sharky's favorite girl, but to see Sabe get there was really cool. He ended up losing in the finals, obviously, but shout out to Sabe Blue.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some times where in limited you have like one of like an important card that's been winning you games, right? Maybe it's a Bo-Katan or something like that, right? Sabe can just take that away and change the math, right?
Nope.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. All right, so let's head over to our friends over at Swoo Base, talk about some of the metadata. Once again, big week for our buddy Unknown, coming in with 63
guys
total
everywhere,
7.1% of the field on a meteoric run for the back half of this season.
I'm just sure that's paper deck lists and some missing data.
The
That's
joke
all right.
never gets old, because Unknown is not going to be undone by others. Right. So, two warring factions. Jokes aside, we see Yoda being the most represented leader. We had 16 PQs in constructed reported, a handful of limited as well. So those won't be represented here. We see Han Solo ECL, Hantu ECL really still well represented, Admiral Piet. But as we go to the top 8s, it gets a little bit more compressed, as we see Hantu at 17 top 8s, Yoda Data Vault at 10, Han Solo 1 yellow at 10 top 8s, but even more impressively, 5 wins. Han Solo 1 yellow dominated this weekend, winning 5 out of 16 total PQs. I know we like to talk about the top 8 rates here because it is a more consistent and predictable metric that we look at here, but it is really impressive to see 5 out of 16 for Han 1 yellow.
Well, if you dig even deeper in that, it's not just the top 8 conversions and the wins. It's the amount of conversions based on how much it was even played in the overall field. Just a dominant statistical performance on basically, if you showed up with Han 1 yellow and you know how to play that deck, you're probably on this list, right? So it was like a silver bullet right through the meta this week. And I'm sure there's gonna have to be some reactions to that. The crazy part too is even with all those yellows, there was a Han 1 red and a Han 1 blue. Or no, green, right? So it's like Han 1, Han 1, Han 1,
Look at this.
Yeah, well, it's Han 1, Han 1, Han 1, and Han 2. It's Han everywhere.
892 total decks. I'm not sure how they're defining that, how others and whatever factor in. 22 total played on the weekend. 21 in the top 64. Some of these PQs are smaller than 64, so not the best metric either. 10 out of 22 making top 8. A little bit less than 50% chance of making top 8. And then 31.3% winning.
Half those that made top 8 won it.
I don't think I've ever seen that while us doing the pod. Even in our own research and when we're not doing the pod, it's been there wasn't like a crazy amount of PQs, but there were still 16. That's not 10. It's not 3. It's not one of these smaller holiday weeks. Incredibly impressive.
Yeah, we're still weeks away from Milwaukee, but it'll be interesting to see if during that time period there's some backlash to this, right? Han Yellow didn't start out the meta as the number one deck, right? It's really creeping up from an effectiveness perspective. What comes around to just slap it down, right? Because if it continues this way going into Milwaukee, then it might be Han Fest.
It's already Han Fest. I said in the very beginning of the set that I'm a little less shocked now, but like I still thought that there was a insignificant chance that Han 1 gets suspended before regionals. And I still think that anybody who knows how to play Han 1 is at a significant advantage because he's such a good leader. He's good in red, he's good in yellow, he's good in green, he's good in blue. And I do think that while red and blue have been super underrepresented by comparison to the other colors, it's a strong leader. And if you know how to play him, you just know how to beat people down with him because he's got so many flexible options. It's kind of insane to see those decks just run.
Yeah.
Well, any deck that can effectively pull off the faith in your friends into the capture shuttle is already, significantly ahead.
So we saw Yoda kind of maintain his spot in the meta. Han 2 ECL, obviously, you could make an argument outside of this like crazy data week from Han 1 Yellow. You can make an argument that Han 2 ECL is probably the safest deck to get you a top 8.
Yeah. I think it's a good points win.
We've talked about that before, and it's not quite the same thing, but we said, hey, Piet was a get your 15 points deck, right? From a safety perspective, Han 2 ECL fits into that category, but with the upside of being able to convert even higher at a higher rate.
Mm-hmm. I didn't realize how far off Piet had dropped now, so maybe he's not as safe as he used to be.
Yeah, well, times are changing.
Eat that deck, right?
Yeah. So this is the week-to-week play rate. Obviously, we bring this up just about every week as we go through it. Obviously, we start off with Anakin in the early days going way down. We see Palpatine Colossus spiking at week 6. We see Han 1 Yellow spiking in week 9 with potentially the biggest spike we've ever seen, right? In this data set, at least. We see Sabe Tarkin Town kind of with a little bit of a false rise here in week 5, and then kind of just a general decline since then. Same thing with CAD to a little bit of a lesser perspective. One of the decks that I'm really interested in talking about, though, is this Kylo Data Vault, where it's like not seeing a ton of play. This is from a champion perspective here from winning. So let me go to total first. It's still not seeing a ton of play. It's so thin that I have to like really highlight it. It's spiking here as we go towards the end. And I do think that this is probably the deck that you want to play if you're playing blue-green villain right now. You might be able to make an argument for Palpatine or something, but I do think that I would be playing this over Kira. I guess one of the questions that I have, and I'd love to hear your perspective and then everybody else's perspective at home as well, but with Kylo Ren being on the rise here as like this unit-based control deck, we saw the struggle into Han 1 Yellow firsthand. The faith starts being almost unbearable to deal with. Why do you think that Kylo is rising this way when we have such a meteoric performance from Han 1 Yellow?
I don't think that they expected such a meteoric performance from Han 1 Yellow this week. I think, honestly, I'd have a hard time justifying blue-green villain right now. Both Hans are fairly good into it, and Han 1 is especially good into it, especially the yellow variant. This might not be the weekend to play a blue-green villain deck. I don't know which blue-green villain does better into Han. I actually had no idea. So Kyle might be able to help me with that one. Is Kira better than that? Or are we just seeing the remnants of a strong performance earlier in the week or month or whatever? Or is there a blue-green villain that makes sense into that kind of a deck?
Yeah, I think if I was trying to target those sort of matchups, I'd prefer Kira. With the earlier flips, she has more ability to interact with what some of these decks are trying to do, especially from like a go wide strategy, being able to flip into CAD, do an OB, that sort of thing. Whereas Kylo is going to come a little bit later. I agree with you, though. Generally, blue-green villain, I keep trying to play it myself. It's just there's certain things you run into, like a Han 2 ECL, that you just get run over, and I don't feel safe at all, right? And I also don't necessarily want to grind into like the Yoda if I run into those. So, it does work for some people. We saw Loopy take it to a final, but he hit aggro, and and got punished in the finals.
Right.
Right? So, yeah, I do see the rise, but I agree. I'm not sure I totally understand why. I would be looking at these Han 1 decks, specifically yellow, and go, what does it really struggle into that I think has a chance into the rest of the meta? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I have some data and I'm cherry picking a little bit here. But here's Han 1 yellow down at the middle portion of your screen here. We see that it's struggling into Yoda a little bit. We're seeing that it's struggling into Han 1 green a little bit, but nothing crazy. And then it's also struggling a little bit into Kylo Data Vault at large, which is interesting. And then obviously that we pulled up Kylo. This is the data from the whole set. Right, so there's some changes here. There's some peaks and troughs and changes and all those things. We see overall that Kylo into Han 2 ECL is pretty bad, right? We're seeing 20 and 40. But as you sort by week to week, right, now we're in the week 9 PQ season, which we are in right now, the 31st through the 1st. And we go over to the matchup tab, again, from our friends over at Swoo Base. We type in Kylo. And look what happened this week as we close leader in base as well, where we see Kylo kind of eating Han 2 ECL's lunch at 8 and 3, right?
I wonder what changed. Yeah.
Where obviously it's a 1 week sample size. There's a lot of different shit that's going on. But as I was crunching the data earlier, Kyle, you make fun of me for being thorough, but this is one of the things I pulled up and said, like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, Kylo has definitely shifted from more of a I'll say Kira-like strategy where you're trying to defend earlier with like Pike Sentinels and these sort of things to a much more hard control style, which must be more effective in handling some of these sort of situations like Childson, right? Like running more just general removal early on, trying to bridge your way to the late game. So perhaps the overall shift in strategy to a much more control-y style is working for at least that matchup. Although, man, I would have thought it would have been the opposite. So the data says what it says.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because both of the Han 1 and Han 2 matchups look pretty good for Kylo in general. And I'm like, that is not my experience with either deck. And it's not what I've seen from those who I know how to pilot the Han side of it. I don't know as many people actually playing Kylo right now that I've been able to watch, but I'd be interested to know what changed. And it's cool when data doesn't, match your expectation, because then you get to learn something. So I'd be curious to know what I'm not understanding about it.
You have to ask yourself the questions and try to figure it out. I guess, the Kylo flip, maybe ramp, you get ahead, you flip, you capture Childson, maybe it's just enough. Also, Han 2 ECL isn't quite as aggro as Sabine Tarkentown that we saw last week or 2 weeks ago rather. And I still question that Faith start and how you deal with it. And it could also, like, it's just this 1 week data set. So let's, be keep that in mind. But it's interesting to think as we trend towards regionals and we try to map out what this meta is going to look like.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it is interesting to me that it continues to change as much as it does, right? You'd think that as we're getting towards this part of the meta that it would be very settled, but it continues to evolve and change week over week, which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot left, and it's a wide meta. There's room for growth. There's weeks and weeks to go prior to regionals. There's a lot to get into. Just because we're having fun brewing doesn't mean that everyone is. We talked about a lot of deck lists so far this week. There's one left that we want to pull up that we haven't had a chance to chat about, and that's from our buddy Lego Pizza from the Boston Network. He took down a PQ in Little Rock, Arkansas over the weekend with Han 1 Tarkentown. Really interesting build, really aggro, a lot of that same base that we talked about. Like, I would say maybe 10 or 15 of these cards go in Sabe, they go in Han 2 Tarkentown, they, whatever it is, right, Sharkey?
I was about to make the joke that this is Sabe Tarkentown answering the question of, well, what if it was just Han? And funny story, this is what happens if it's just Han.
Yeah, really strong.
Yeah. We talked about, some of the good things. It's like, what are some of the best things you could be doing in the meta right now? And that's faith in your friends into Sanctioner Shuttle. We've also talked about the stolen AT hauler being a challenge to deal with, and then just being aggressive overall. So, it's like this deck to me says, all right, well, people are ramping up the aggression. How can I outrace them and then also punish them with Tarkin Town? So,
yeah. Or if they don't have an answer to space, what happens if you get a turn early Lightmaker?
Yeah, I was just gonna say Lightmaker on 4 is absolutely terrible. Gorilla Soldier after, like, imagine you go double 1-drop or Faith into Gorilla Soldier. You're talking about like what, 9 damage on base after turn 2, right? Like in theory, maybe could be kinda. So a lot of interesting stuff here, and obviously great player from Ian rocking this big Han guy. Love to see it come in a different form as we get towards the end of this rotation cycle. Really, really cool though overall. You have to wonder, like, does Gorilla Soldier fit in Sabe? Does it fit in Han for Tarkin Town? Maybe not as much, but we'll find out as we get through a little more testing. So I think that'll do it. A little bit of a long pod for you guys. A big shout out to our friends over at Premier Games, using their tokens nonstop. I've just been stacking my credits up in practice, right? I've just been working on my hand mechanics. So if you want to get the best tokens and through, head over to premiergames.store, use code Colorado Cantina Crew and checkout. Save yourself some cash. A lot coming up here on the channel as we get into this part of the season. Like we said, we're still going to be giving you those meta updates every week, but we're going to be experimenting, trying some new stuff, trying new builds, doing some leader rankings, maybe bringing on some members of the team and having some good times doing it. We have midday matchup this weekend with the return of the return of Jillian coming back to the program. Kyle's too old to get the reference, I think. But what's going on with midday matchup this weekend?
Yeah, I found a new way to print proxies that's super easy. So nice. I think it's time to move on. I think I got to print up this Jin deck and maybe pick one of the decks you guys brought and let's match them up.
Oh, that'll be sweet. And you'll have to join the Discord to find out Kyle's new hack to print proxies out quicker. Because I'll tell you what, Kyle, Sharkey, and I were hacks cutting out and doing art projects. I remember the last time we did a proxy stream at my house.
It took a while.
We were like, yeah, just come over like 10-15 minutes early. That's all it'll take. We're sitting there cutting with scissors. I need to buy one of those things you would have in elementary school cutters, where you just like line them up and do it. So do that. We had a nice change up with Jillian being out of town. We got another one of the team guys coming on. So if you missed last week, go check it out and tune in this weekend on Friday, noon Eastern, right? Or is it noon Mountain? Noon Mountain for midday matchup. That's all we got for this week on the podcast. Let us know your thoughts on some of these builds. You find all the links in the description below. And for Kyle and Sharkey, I'm Jordan. Stay tuned, stick with us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.